As we look at this example program we started on last time, and we looked at the comments, the next thing you see in the program are these include statements, and the include statements are compiler directives. They tell the compiler to do things. There are a number of other compiler directives, and in fact there's a quasi-language with compiler directives that you can do a lot of other things, but the most common thing you see are include statements. An include statement tells the compiler to go out and pull in functions from another file. The first one is the std.afx.h. That one is specific to Microsoft's Visual Studio. That is a function or a file of routines and all that are part of it. The IO stream is one of the standard C++ libraries. C type of files, include files, typically have a .h. The original C++ also had the .h, but a few years ago they changed the standard, and most of the C++ standard libraries today do not include the .h. All of the compiler directives start with that number sign and then the keyword. There's no space between the number sign and the keyword. If you put a space in there, you will get an error. Now, the difference between the quotation marks that we see in the first one and the left and right or less than and greater than sign on the second one deals with where the compiler will look for those files. If you use the quotation marks, it will look for them in the folder or the directory, the folder that is either identified by the path or the current folder. In this case, there's no path, so it would be the current folder. If you have the greater than, less than, it tells it to look for it in the default paths for a library. And what that folder or path is varies with different compilers, so I can't tell you what path it would be, but every compiler has a path that it looks for those files in. So we have that. Now, once again, you cannot have a space between the number sign and the word include. You have one space between include and your actual file name there. This next line says using namespace std, or standard, short for standard. Namespaces are something that unique to C++. They did not exist in C. You won't see that in a C program, but in a C++ program you will usually see the using namespace standard. And what the namespaces are essentially a list of identifiers that are going to be commonly used in or a program. Standard is the one that's used most often. You can build your own namespaces. You won't see that in small programs. You may see it in very large ones. That is well beyond anything we will probably get to in this series. Namespaces just aren't part of a beginning series. And so the using namespace standard. Now, what does it really do for us? Well, when I run this program, and we've ran this before, go ahead and build it because I've made a change. And we see this hello world output, and we've not talked about exactly how what's happening, but this cout line or console output command says display something to the console screen. That's that command prompt that we see, or command window we see. Now, cout is one of the names or identifiers that are part of the standard, and if I hover over it, I actually see a tooltip, and it says std : and then an output O stream or output stream standard : cout to tell me it's part of the standard namespace. If I were to comment out the using namespace standard and then go in and run this, again I have to rebuild it because it's changed, I get that there were build errors. It can't run it. And notice the squiggly line under cout. It's not identified, and when I hover over it now, I see there's an error there on the tooltip. It doesn't recognize or understand what a cout is because cout is part of that namespace. Well, we can actually, without having the using namespace standard, we can use the cout, and we would do that by specifying the namespace we're using before the command. And you do that by putting the std : it's 2 colons, std for standard, : that identifies what namespace that command is part of, and cout. And if I run it now, lo and behold, it works. So I could do that. In a large program where you have a lot of output and input and commands that are part of that standard namespace, it would actually be a lot more typing. In this case, with one cout, this would be less typing than adding the using namespace standard, but in a larger program, that would not be the case. If we had things from other namespaces, then we would have to either identify those commands from those other namespaces. For right now, for anything we're going to be doing in this series that I can think of, we're going to have them as part of those commands as part of that standard namespace. So as long as we've got the using namespace standard in our compiler directives, or before main, after our includes our compiler directives, then we should be okay. And next time we'll actually start looking at that main function and what's going on with it.